focusing on artificial intelligence and machine learning. Sarthak, if you're ready.
Uh, Thank you so much, Siddharth. Let me share my screen first. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
So basically, to start with, my name is Sarthak Ingre, finally a CSA student, and I'm currently doing my bachelor thesis here at NUS. And to tell about myself more, currently I'm working on how large language models perceive, summarize, and potentially reshape ideological patterns. I have also worked in audio and AIML, like translation, diarization of audios, or building automations and AI agents. Before we begin, I want to highlight one thing. There is a very nice panel for today's talk. So naturally, everyone's path can be different. There may be things which can contrast from each other's perspective. So take whatever aligns with your goals and situation. So why off-campus thesis? Why one should do it, actually? For me, I was just curious enough. I wanted to see what real research actually feels like a proper day-to-day research one. Also, if you are planning for MS or PhD abroad, a thesis in the same university helps a lot. Means basically you can vouch for your or seat there. You learn the culture in a different country. You understand and what are the expectations, and make your application more stronger. And honestly, the biggest benefit is that you find out whether you enjoy research or not exactly. Because one being in undergraduate state is not fully aware of what research looks like, to be very honest, is considering in BIT's point of view. Because research in academia is way more different from corporate work also. So if one decides that he wants to get an RI, so what exactly he should do? So there are some of the paths or way that one can get a research internship. So one is a structured way, like to applying into some sort of programs and to get a research internship. And second one is mostly most of them would be aware of, is a cold mailing strategy. So I will tell about the structure programs. It's basically, if you want a more organized path, there are several structure programs like MyTax, DARD, or IRIS, or Rise by CMU. So some of them are scholarship actually, yeah, and some of them are fully funded research programs. Uh, these programs provide it funding and structure in an organized manner. Though my tax no longer accept students from India, but I did mention this because there are a few students joining from second year also, so it get open in the batch. Uh, and one more thing, these programs are really very competitive. If you can't go through these programs, it's still okay, because code mailing labs and professors directly also a great option. And I also want to show one of the resource which can be useful. Presence and things. So this is one of a GitHub repo which can be useful actually, because there are all of the structured programs. So one should can apply and get a research internship. So it's actually a very famous repo in which you can see multiple Indian programs and colleges also where you can apply. And so it's actually a decent resource. Now coming back to my slides. Uh, so this was about structure programs. Now the second one, which I told earlier, is the cold milling strategy, and this is where the actual grind begins for applying a research internship. Uh, and when one should apply for, or it's actually there are some of the questions like which time one should mail professor, which professors to select actually. Should they make personalized mails or send in a mass, and there are some of the factors which I'm going to talk about. The best time to send any mail is from 9 to 12 in the morning, and to be very specific to that professor's time zone, because it's the start of the day, and the professor to actually look on their mails in the morning. And keep your mail very brief and hyper specific to lab, uh, or the professor's research, because professors want to know that what value you can add in his work. And also do mention about the fundings, things that you require funding to do this internship, if you're going for an on-site one. And one more thing which I have observed, because where I'm working right now, there are mainly PhDs or postdocs which are also taking interviews and shortlisting candidates. So one thing what I have observed, most of the mails which tend to get reject, they rather list their achievements, and don't explain why they actually fit for a lab and what they can contribute. So that is actually a good point into which can set you apart from others while mailing. Now, what exactly e- you should attach in mail? That is also important question. What we have discussed till now in email, keep it very short, because a professor will give like a minute or two to look through your profile. So keeping a short mail is always very beneficial. And in the attachment, you should obviously attach your CV. And second was very unique thing for me. Because I used to attach research proposed topics also, because what ideas the professor might also be interested to work in. So I used to list some of the research ideas, and in that, at after listing, I used to tell in a very brief manner that what research ideas I am interested into, like tech stacks or requirements that can be used in that, and any relevant work or experience that I had before to do that task. So if you're mentioning these points, it will obviously make your or email very strong. And when and this is very personalized mail. So to prepare a research proposal, you actually need a lot of time, because you need to read the research paper also, and everything in to go through each of the professor's work, because this shows initiative and effort. It's actually a very eye-standing thing in for professors. So it's okay if you do this work. And I have also attached a resource here. It will be much more beneficial. Let me share it. It is a answer to the question that which professor we should apply for. So there was a professor from University of South California. So he with some of the RIs and interns, they actually he are maintaining in this spreadsheet. Is it visible, the spreadsheet?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. So in this pressure, you can and see the universities, the faculties, and the research interns, so that it's very easy for you also that which professors that you should shortlist also. And they have also mentioned that for which semester they are looking in students for, like fall or spring. And so it is actually useful. Well, and you can see the positions also, the where are the interns and vacancy, so you can apply accordingly. Uh, and one more thing, in the fall semester means our first semester, basically in context of our bits. It's so don't get confused in that. And when choosing a professor, don't only focus on their H index. It's means compared to the other faculties, because high H index profs are not that very enthusiastic too. Means it's a very subjective thing. In but one should keep in mind in that if you look through a professor whose H index might be not high, so don't skip it. At least is uh, try to mail him, or if there is any structure programs where he is listed on, so apply for the same. So because you never know where you can and get an opportunity. And to summarize everything, now, okay, I will suggest to read it as many of papers, snowball them, and mail professors, because us, that is going to get you through your thesis. And always consider funding availabilities. And to talk more about funding in year in bits, I know for some of the departments, like for CSIS, it's there. The CSIS will not allow you to go for thesis unless you get a proper funding. And so proper funding, there is a benchmark for that. It's exactly like 1,000 USD. So there are mostly universities who pay a lot than 1,000 USD per month. So focus on that, and do mention in your email while mailing to other pros that you are looking for a funded opportunity. And that was my time actually. Thank you so much for listening.
Right. Thank you so much, Sarthak. We really appreciated your insights. Our next speaker for today is Srijan Shashwat, who completed his off-campus thesis with the Aditya Birla Group HQ, and he focused on international economics. Srijan, if you're ready, on to you.
Yep, thank you. I'll just start sharing my screen. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Good. So I think the first session was very good. If I would have gotten that session before I was applying for a thesis, I would have benefited immensely. So thank you so much. Um, Although it's probably not relevant right now at this juncture, but I think it's a very informative session. So this next 15 minutes, I'll be taking you through all about corporate thesis, what it is, why you should consider it, and how you can go about trying to do a corporate thesis. I have 4 things on my agenda: why consider it, how to get a corporate thesis, what are the trade-offs and other things that you should keep in mind, and how you can navigate your thesis, because it's a different atmosphere compared to an academic institution. A little intro, because of course self-obsession is therapy. Like most of you guys, it was this time 2 years ago that I was actually looking for a thesis. I eventually landed a corporate thesis through a cold email under Dr. Ila Patnaik, who was the former principal economic advisor at the Ministry of Finance, and is currently serving as the chief economist of Aditya Birla Group. At that time, I had a CS plus economics background, a good to decent CGPA, and some research experience, all of which sort of helps. So I'll first discuss why you should and why you shouldn't consider a corporate thesis. Largely, a corporate thesis, if a corporate firm has a research division or a research unit or any research entity, they would obviously have amazing research facilities comparable to the top research labs for whatever subject you're targeting, if not better. Usually the research is more actionable. Why I say usually is because if the research was not actionable, there would be no reason for the corporate entity to be funding research in the first place. If you're considering other domestic research avenues, you will most likely get better paid through a corporate thesis, even if you're doing it in India. The fourth and the most important point, according to me, is that the guidance is flowing not just from your supervisor, but also from your colleagues. And one thing to remember is, in an academic institution, you'll be working with a lot of postdocs and PhDs. Even in a corporate thesis setting, you will be working from colleagues who have already done their PhDs and then are working in that setting. So I think it's a very good learning experience where there's a lot more collaboration than there is in a typical academic institution. You can get impactful LORs. I'll discuss this point a little bit deeper. They're impactful because they're coming from usually industry research respected leaders, so it can help you out in some aspects. It may not help you out as much as an academic LOR in other aspects. And there's also the possibility of career navigation. What I mean by that is you can try to join that research lab itself. For example, if you're working at Microsoft Research for your thesis, there's a very high likelihood that you can do your pre-doctoral fellowship at Microsoft Research itself. So it helps in that manner as well. There are some downsides. The first downside is, although it does sound fancy corporate, it does not give you fancy corporate pay. The pay is obviously somewhere between a typical research salary versus a typical corporate salary. It is not a substitute for PS2. You cannot do a corporate thesis at a registered PS2 company. So you have to keep that in mind when you're reaching out. And it does not have a direct impact on your higher studies plans except an LOR. So this is what was mentioned in the preceding talk as well. So if you're doing a thesis at an academic institution, it's very highly likely that you will be preferred for a MS or a PhD at that institution itself. But in terms of those plans, there's very less likelihood that a corporate thesis will have a lot of impact. So that's a major downside for doing a corporate thesis. How to get a corporate thesis? Just like most things in life, there are more than one ways to get in. So some places like Microsoft Research or National Center for Good Governance, etc., they work very differently from some other places like McKinsey Global Institute or Tata Capital. What I mean by that is there will be places who have very structured programs where you can get in. They will be listing out their vacancies on social media channels, on their websites, etc., and you can apply using your resume and a particular form that they have. And there will be other places where you have to particularly reach out to high-ranked researchers and then try and convert them through cold emailing. So nowadays, I see that it is getting to see semester intern openings and research units of popular tech companies, and the application process is just like any other internship, but obviously the skills prioritized would be different. For most other avenues, cold emailing is still the key. I think the last session covered a lot of interesting aspects about cold emailing, which I definitely did not know back in the day. The process is roughly same as cold emailing a professor because you're working on the same thing. This environment is different. The only difference you need to make is that you need to find a high-ranked employee who has enough stake to offer you the internship and also knows enough to be your supervisor as well. In my case, I think it was one of the most random cold emails that I sent. I thought I would have never gotten that opportunity, and I thought let's just reach out to the chief economist because why not? And it turned out in my favor. So I do highly recommend reaching out to very high-ranked officials in these research units with a compelling story of why you want to work under them in that particular research unit of that company. And I think you have a very good shot given that BITS has a decent reputation even in the corporate world in most of the domains that you work in. There are some important things to keep in mind. BITS does actively encourage corporate thesis, but again, it's not a backdoor entry to a fancy PS2 company. So as you will realize once you get a corporate thesis, the approval process is more stringent than that for academic thesis. Secondly, you need a supervisor. You do not need a manager. It's very common for you to land a manager in a sort of a research unit who will be looking after your day-to-day operations. That is not what you want. You need to work on your thesis, which is a full-time research commitment, and hence you need a supervisor who can help you out. So you have to keep that in mind. You need a topic for your thesis. So a lot of this will be sort of self-guided. There will be a lot of ad hoc requests that are business as usual for the company. Now, these ad hoc requests you will have to do because you're a part of the company's unit and you're getting paid. But those ad hoc requests will not help you build your thesis in terms of whatever you need to do for your own research work. So you need to decide on your thesis, you need to connect with your supervisor and then work specifically for your own goal apart from juggling those ad hoc requests as well. it is better to talk to a professor at BITS beforehand for a soft confirmation, because I am aware some professors are very hesitant to take a corporate thesis student, although there has been clear instructions in the past that corporate thesis should not be discouraged. One thing to keep in mind, and this is something you should communicate to the people you're working with, your thesis, as in the document that you prepare, is the intellectual property of BITS, and it is not an intellectual property of the company. Whatever you publish as a consequence of your tenure in the company, nobody will care. But that final document that you build and submit as your thesis will be a BITS document. And so it cannot be used by the company in its research reports or white papers, etc. In my case, I did have a conference publication through the work that I did, but obviously that was not the same thing as the entire thesis document. So you have to keep in mind that these two are different things, and you don't want to fall in any trouble from either side. Sometimes, at least in my domain, which is policy or economics, you can take the risk of reaching out slightly closer to your thesis start date. For example, if your thesis is starting in August, it's okay to reach out in March as well, which makes this a very good fallback option, because all of you, when you're targeting an off-campus thesis abroad, you will be taking enough time in hand, because a lot of things need to fall in place for you to land a thesis abroad. You need to get an approval, you need to talk about funding, you need to approve it from BITS, you need to approve your visa, etc. So obviously the timeline for an off-campus thesis abroad is slightly earlier compared to what you can afford it to be for corporate thesis, and hence I do mention that it can be a good fallback option for you as well, given you have a right game plan. I did put this slide just so that you know how to navigate your thesis, because this environment is also new for a lot of people and very different from wherever you've worked for your SOP or your summer research internships, etc. The first thing is you have to ask the right questions. There's a lot of industry experts whose expertise you can utilize, as well as your talented colleagues themselves. Remember that you are just a bachelor's or an integrated master's student who will only add incremental value to the research field at best. So you don't have to spend your time reinventing the wheel. 5 months, 6 months is a very small time to really create impactful research. So keep that in mind. Second, and this is very important, you have to find your tangible output. You don't want to become the coffee intern, the intern who does all the grunt work, brings the bosses coffee, and gets nothing in return. You have to make sure that you get something tangible from the internship. This could be in the form of publications, conference presentations, letters of recommendation, etc., apart from just the CV points. I agree that the CV points are very important, especially if the company is very big. Even now, when I go somewhere and I say that I spent 6 months in Aditya Birla Group headquarters, it does have a good impact. But in the long run, it would have no impact if I had no other tangible outputs from the research, uh, that I did there, in a way. And you have to pace your semester well. So in general, professors and academicians have a better idea of how to pace your thesis than people who are in the corporate industry. So you obviously want to work passionately on a lot of problems, but you need to ensure that your 5 months are well paced for you to achieve all of that without compromising with the quality. If you are able to manage it better, it actually helps a lot with your own networking, because your manager, your direct seniors, your colleagues, everyone will know that this person is someone who can handle responsibility and who can handle uh, time management very well. So that goal is up to you to chase. You should set realistic goals and you should have a lot of fun, because companies are related. The research units of companies are relatively more chill compared to the typical corporate life. Yeah, so that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention. I'm sure on a Saturday afternoon you are probably sleepy as I am, but thank you all for turning up. Yep.
That was amazing, Srijan. Thank you so much. Our next speaker for today is Shurjo Das, who completed his off-campus thesis at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, and he did it in the field of thermal and fluid engineering. Shurjo, if you're ready, on to you.
Before I proceed, I just want to check if I am audible.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
All right, all right. Very good evening to one and all. My name is Shurjo Das, and I'm a senior mechanical engineering student at the Pilani campus. Now, as I'm saying that, I'm realizing that I've come to the end of a rather wonderful journey, but I hope to share my insights and my experience in the domain of research today with all of you. A little bit about myself. Unlike most people in my batch, I was genuinely fascinated by the scope in my branch, particularly in research and development, be it building rockets, cooling of nuclear control rods, running CFD analysis on F1 cars, and well, many more. But yes, like all people, I too came to the crossroads and had to give a thought on the road not taken. So that is exactly where my seniors helped me. So as all of you know, in BITS we have that culture where seniors assist us like their own, younger brothers and sisters. So I remember having this conversation with my senior in ASME, General Shah. So I told him that I want to pursue research, but I'm not sure. What if I suddenly change my mind? So he asked me to do two things. Firstly, do my PS1 in core, and the second was to do a study oriented project. Now, both of these choices are essential because they give you an exposure to both the industrial and research sides of your branch, based on which you can make a choice. In my case, I absolutely loved what I did in my study oriented project. And very soon I realized that coming up with sustainable solutions that can be implemented to solve problems is something that drives me. Now, building on this, I did many projects in the field of applied thermal engineering, and I explored interdisciplinary courses and fields as well, which include fluid mechanics, heat and mass transfer, gas dynamics, sports engineering, digital twins, and oh yeah, recently mechanobiology. While my predominant focus has been on conducting numerical simulation-based studies, uh, I have also done experimental work. So yes, am an all-round. I have an all-round research profile. Now, based on my expertise, I was able to land my research internship at IIT Delhi at the Thermal Systems Research Group under Professor Anurag Goyal. And I'm still doing my bachelor's thesis jointly at BITS and at the University of Cape Town under Professor Tunde Bello Chende, who is the head of the department at Mechanical Engineering. And at BITS, my co-supervisor is Suvanjan Bhattacharya, who is the associate professor. Now, both Srijan and Sarthak have beautifully summarized the entire process of applying the various programs that are there. And as Srijan said rightly, that you have to find your purpose, whether this is something that you're inclined towards and it's something that drives you. So, if I have to leave you guys with something, I'd leave you with two pieces of information, and that is how to land these opportunities. So the two best methods are, as one Sarthak pointed out, is cold mailing, and the second is through connections. Now, let's jump to the first one, which is cold mailing. Now you can find thousands of templates of cold mail throughout the internet. You can generate something from AI, ChatGPT, Perplexity. But in my case, I felt that, again, it's my personal opinion, the character and personality of a person, they go a long way. And that is something that uh, another person or an unknown person would be able to appreciate better. So those two things have to reflect in your cold mail. And that is exactly what I focused on. So, right in my, I think, third year, first semester, yeah, I drafted a cold mail and I started mailing professors throughout India in IT Bombay, Delhi, even in ISC Bangalore. So, yes, rejection is a part of the process, but again, you win some, you learn some. So, I was able to get replies from ISC Bangalore, IT Delhi, Madras, and Bombay. But the project in IIT Delhi under Professor Anurag Goyal really attracted me because we were working on passive cooling of buildings using phase change materials. So That was something that was of my interest. And yes, so that is about the cold mailing approach. Next would be having connections. Now, this is an absolutely integral part of the process for landing an off campus thesis. Now, being at BITS, we have a lot of seniors, we have a lot of contacts, that entire system is there. But the very conventional route is something that I followed, which was to build upon the relationship that I had with my professor, Dr. Subhash Bhattacharya. And essentially, I told him about my plan to, you know, get a master's and then eventually do a PhD. So he got interested. He was like, maybe yes, I should assist this guy. And that's when I was introduced to, or rather reintroduced to, Professor Tunde. Now, I officially started my thesis in the month of August 2025, but I met Professor Tunde in the year 2024 in March during one renewable energy conference which happened in Pilani. So at that time, I was still working on my first paper on solar desalination, which got published in Scientific Reports, Springer Nature. So I was still working on that, still a novice. So he asked me, "Young man, what are you doing?" And I was absolutely intimidated. Just somehow I fumbled and I said, "Ki, sir, I'm doing something, something, something." And he got interested. He started asking me questions. I had some confidence, and then we had a conversation. We then had dinner together later, and then we shared contacts, and I stayed in touch with him. So when Professor Bhattacharya in my 3-2, he said that, would you like to do the thesis under him? I certainly said yes, why not? So when I had my first interaction with Professor Tunde after such a long time, he was instantly able to recognize me. He was like, oh yeah, it's you, of course. So uh, that is how that is the power of connections. So now he knows Professor Tunde has known Suvanjan sir for a very long time, and through Suvanjan sir, I got to know him. So that is the power of connections, and uh, for you people to utilize it, I would recommend you to go to conferences and also present papers. That is an excellent way to get into research as well, and also to regularly converse with your professor, and they are the best people who can guide you in that field. So, yes, having said that, I think I'm pretty much done. So, I would really like to answer any questions that you might have at the end. So, yes, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Shurjo. That was enlightening. And now for today, our final speaker is Jyotiraditya Shigdar, who completed his off-campus thesis at the Max Planck Institute of Colloids and Interfaces in Germany in the field of computational and theoretical sciences. Jyotiraditya, are you ready?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes, it is.
So, hi everyone. So, I'm Jyotiraditya Sakra. As you introduced me, I'm completing my master's thesis and bachelor's thesis at sorry, Max Planck Institute of Colloids and Interface. So, as like my fellow mates told, there are like there are methods to get off-campus thesis. So one of them is like scholarship programs, example, MyTech, STAT. Another one would be like university collaborations. So to be precise, these methods are like really easy and competitive to get if you have a high CG, and like if you're really having a good CG and recommendation letters. So speaking on from my perspective, I kind of don't really have a really good CG, so I approached for the second method, which was faculty collaborations or cold mailing. So for faculty collaborations, like I tried, but I did not really get any kind of good relation. Like as Shurjo mentioned, like his thesis was mostly based upon connections and faculty collaboration. So that's a really good thing. But for me, I somehow did not manage to get. So I started cold mailing, and I will be talking about cold mailing and the whole process of maybe preparing your profile for the off-campus thesis. So I will be just answering two questions. When and where should you apply and start cold mailing? You all will be like, really? So yeah, the first one, if you guys see, so this is a snapshot of a response I got from a professor when I mailed him in July 2024 for a thesis starting this year, June 2025. But ultimately, they were like, I'm already committed to hosting many visiting scholars. So it can be two options. Either he did not like my profile, or it's like he's actually committed. So when I started cold mailing numerous professors, and I actually got to see that they are committed, and I also like interacted with few of them. So yeah, the thing is, you need to start really early if you want to apply. So it's like you need to start like around 1 or 1.5 years prior to your starting date if you actually want to go for an off-campus thesis abroad. So what should be an ideal strategy? The ideal strategy might be what I took was checking the deadlines of visa. So example, if you are going to US, so for US, like you would be requiring quite a long time, maybe around 3 months for getting a visa. So I started early applying to US, and similarly, like for going to Europe and other countries, it's like it's kind of easier to get a visa. So what my plan was to go to like start applying for Europe a bit later and start applying for US early. And like I knew that my worst case would be doing an on-campus thesis at one of my like at Pilani only, or going to some other institute in India because ultimately, like, I guess I don't have that bad profile that IITs or IICs won't accept. So that was my strategy. So fine, you guys applied, you guys gave interview, you guys did all the procedures. Now you guys got an offer letter. So which one would you choose? So for my case, like I also got offers, and it's not that I just stuck with one, stayed with one. I took all the offers and then I had started shortlisting. So this is actually going to be one interesting thing which I want you guys to actually think about before choosing your research domain. So if you can see on the right side, there are like few options given with a question, small question. So like suppose we go for the first one, H index. If you see there are like two H index snapshots. One is a professor's profile with H index of 66, and another is a professor's profile with a H index of 100. So as Srijan also mentioned in his talk, that never go for H index. So I do think I don't really need to explain this point because he really made it clear. So yeah, now, for researcher's profile, suppose you found your background of interest and everything. So, would you prefer a Nobel laureate or would you prefer a rising star? So, in my case, I started applying early. So somehow it so happened that in September I got a response from David Becker that he is ready to host me in his lab. And in October, I got to know that he recently received a Nobel Prize very last year. And that would have been a really good charm on my profile, like doing a research in his lab. But gradually, I also got offers from other institute, and I somehow had to do a trade-off between him versus a rising star. So I went for a rising star. Now, countries, yeah, obviously, like to be honest, to be precise, if you are going for an off-campus thesis, you are going international. So it's not that just you are gonna do like thesis and work all the time. So yeah, let me tell one thing clearly. Like in India, example, we don't exactly have a proper working hours. So for me, when I was in India, like in Pilani, so that time I used to go to the lab maybe even late night when I was working, like not just working, maybe assisting the doctoral candidates at that time. but it's a strict policy in Germany that you have to work between maybe from 9 to 5, and you are not allowed by the law to work beyond those hours because it's going to trouble you in your insurance, which is going to be a bit trouble. So yeah, so countries like, and so since you have a limited working hours and also weekends are totally off, like you are not allowed to work, so you are gonna go for trips and everything. So you have to also choose wisely the country, maybe like where it's fun and casual. So this is a bit sad. Now universities, obviously. So trade-off between the universities is also mandatory. So yeah, is it really that easy to get an off-campus thesis? Well, it depends on your expectations. So, to be precise, there are like mutual expectations between a student and a researcher. So, a student would be like, I want to have a great time. I want to learn something new. I want to test the domain that if it's my research of interest. So, honestly saying, everybody learned or explored research at some point of time, but they are not really sure if that research suits you. Why? Because in bits, our research is the what to say? It's a like a part-time job kind of thing, or maybe a part-time work which we are doing. It's not really a full time. That whole day you are working there. So even for the people who are going for 3 years, it's like the first time you are actually doing a whole time. Like every day you are working. So it's gonna be something which you are going to learn soon. Along with that, you're also getting your grade point, the 20 credits or 16 credits for off-campus thesis. So yeah, this is what a student wants. And what a researcher wants. He wants to be like someone who actually supports his or her project. And yeah, we want to like teach the student to enhance presentation skills, to enhance like conference speaking, and also a student who is actually motivating the PhD doctoral candidate or the postdoctorate to work. Also, they, yeah, they definitely do want a master student or a bachelor student who is potential to be considered as a doctoral candidate. And for most important thing, if they want to consider you for a doctoral candidate, they want you to work independently. So how should you build your profile? Honestly saying, as these are all from my perspective, which I'm talking. So if you are a wet lab person, your core disciplinary skills like core disciplinary knowledge which you have learned through your 4 or 3 years of wits, and most importantly like probability and statistics, this subject, differential equation subject, and yeah, if you are in wet lab, the characterization skills, they are most important for you. But if you are a student in dry lab, like from my case example, a theoretical guy, then, along with the things of the wet lab, you also need to be really thorough with mathematics, numerous literature surveys, and modeling skills like numerical methods, simulations, modeling, and obviously patience because it's like you have to wait for the resources to get available for a long time because there are queues and everything. But one second, why characterization? Like I have made this chemical. Like why do I need to get like characterize it? Because or why do I need to be like wet labs? Because the thing is, you are a theoretical person. You have to verify what exactly the person from the wet lab did, or you have to answer some question from the wet lab. Example, the wet lab people they made a polymer, like a mixture of polymer having two particular components, and they infused it with a dye, and they can't answer through any sorts of reaction that the dye has more affinity towards polymer A or polymer B. So that's where your task comes. You have to figure out that if the dye has more affinity towards polymer A or polymer B. So yeah, you need to know about all of the wet lab, even the preparation method, because the modeling and simulation part varies a lot with the help of your preparation method. So, well, that's from this side. Now, if you have, like, what to say, you guys have built your profile. Now you have to present it. So, like, present it. How will you present it? Like, with your curriculum vitae, right? So, before going on towards building your curriculum vitae, I would be giving you some important points which you need to avoid at all costs. When you are cold mailing your professor, please kindly don't attach the statement of purpose which you wrote for one particular interest group to this group, as your CV might be similar, but the statement of purpose actually varies from each and every research group. Also, one crucial thing, don't send mails to all the profs of the same department or the same university. This was one mistake which I did for one particular university, and somehow, when I was actually called for a interview round, I got grilled there, like grilled badly, because it's like three of the professors sat together and then they asked me. But eventually, I was also offered position there. It's like in collaboration with three profs, so it was fine. And another thing, most importantly, based on this grilling session, please don't add anything, any information in your CV which you are not able to defend, because there is a high chance you might be called for an interview, and in the interview panel, not only the prof, there would be the whole group who would be sitting there. So, example saying, based on my last 6 months of experience at Max Planck, I have also joined numerous interviews where students have applied, and I have also asked them questions. So it's like the director is sitting, the group leaders are sitting, all the postdocs, all the PhD candidates, and along with the interns, they are sitting and interviewing like one particular student. So let's come to your curriculum vitae preparation. So most importantly, like in curriculum vitae, people usually add what the group does, but no, you have to add what you have done in the group. Like example, if you have if you have worked in a chemistry lab, and you have done a column chromatography or maybe a characterization thing, so you should write that you have assisted the doctoral candidates in doing the column chromatography or the separation techniques, not that you have particularly synthesized the whole compound, because that gives a very wrong impression about you, and after you join the lab it's going to be really trouble for you. Okay, another thing, curriculum vitae is really different from what is so-called resume. So if you are like, resume is limited till one page, but curriculum vitae, if it's a European curriculum vitae, it can be as long as 10 pages, and if it's American curriculum vitae, it has to be restricted within 2 pages. Also, small tips, like Europeans do love to see your snapshot in the curriculum vitae, and Americans prefer date of birth. And if possible, talk with your professors and your university and add the contact details of the recommenders, like maybe three preferably, at the end of your curriculum vitae. This will show and give an impression to the faculty or the research group you're approaching, that yeah, you are confident in what you have written in your curriculum vitae, so they can anytime just cross check with them. Further, how will we evaluate it? So this is what exactly, like example, I was evaluated on my field of knowledge, my originality, my technical skills, and group bonding. So what is known by field of knowledge? It's like you will be, usually it's in an interview, they usually ask you to prepare a presentation where you will be presenting for 5 minutes. And then in this one, the professor or the any one of them will just randomly pick up a slide and will ask you something random. They will just see that how much you're attentive and how much you're knowledgeable in the thing which you have particularly done. The originality and independence, they will be just asking you something questions. Example, uh, they might ask you like, how do you read a research paper? Simple thing. So if somebody asked me, how do I read a review paper? I would just say I go through the images, and somehow that's what I actually do. So yeah, this kind of thing. So if I tell them that I read the entire review paper, so that will give them a false impression that I kind of don't know research, because for the review paper I am doing like, I need to review multiple things. So I will only read the entire review paper if that is like point of interest, if that covers the thing which I want. So yeah, that's how. So that brings you a novelty, that brings you originality of your in the research group. And experience and tech skills, yeah. Obviously, it's like what you have done in the past versus what you are gonna do. And to be honest, don't mess up with them because they are the master in the domains. And group bonding, it's like it depends on the presentation. That if you are presenting in a decent way, like if you're guiding everyone through, or you're just boasting yourself that what you can do to just get into the group. So somehow it's like what group bonding is necessary in research. And final things like what you want to research on. These are a few questions which like can be asked for your interviews. Like you can maybe take a screenshot of the slide, might be there. And yeah, I want to come to this point. Like when you're preparing a presentation, suppose it's not that it's a 5 minutes presentation, right? So you can't just show entire thing you have done in your 4 years. So it's better you just show the crunch which you have done and prepare supplementary slides at the end, which you won't be showing in the presentation, but be prepared because since they will be asking you some questions related to your work, that's compulsory. They will be asking for sure. Since they will be asking some questions, you can that time just go to the supplementary slides and show them that see this is the way I have done. If suppose they you are a theoretical like you did simulation, they will be like, have you verified it? So you can just keep the reference at the end that like a picture or maybe a snapshot from the reference that yeah see this is how the way I verified them. So these are going to be some really good things. Thank you everyone for listening and for your time to listen to my yap. Yeah, I realized that I did not introduce myself. So this is me, Jyotiraditya. So like I'm currently doing a master's and bachelor's thesis in like collaboration with BITS Pilani and Max Planck Institute of Collage and Interface and University of Cambridge. So it's a what I'm doing is like I'm working on two universities project right now at the same time, and yeah, that's all. I guess that sums up everything. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you so much, Jyotiraditya. That was amazing. And that was the last presentation for today. A very warm thanks to Sarthak, Srijan, Shurjo, and Jyotiraditya for sharing your valuable insights and your experiences. With that, we will now begin our Q&A session, and we will be addressing the questions that our participants submitted throughout the session. I will first read out the name of the person to whom it was addressed, and then they can answer the question which I asked. The first question is for Sarthak. What is the difference between a research internship and an off-campus thesis?
Basically, both are a same thing only, but you are doing a research internship. If registering the that course as a thesis in your bachelor's, basically in your 4.1 or 4.2, that is considered to be an off-campus thesis, where you are not doing thesis in your university, BITS Pilani, rather in another college.
Okay, thank you. I hope that answered the question. Next question is for Jyotiraditya. How much weightage does GPA have for institutes like Max Planck?
Could you please repeat over?
How much CGPA has a weightage for institutes like Max Planck?
So to be precise, my CGPA is on the like higher side of 6 right now. So yeah, you can see.
Okay. Thank you. Now, this is a question for Srijan Shashwat. For dualites, is opting for a thesis a bit risky if one wants to have a guaranteed job offer upon graduation? For someone who has secured an SI or IT role and later did an off-campus thesis in 5.1 and PS2 in 5.2. Is it too dependent on SI PPU? And is it possible to negotiate a flexible joining date so that one can sit for day one placements?
I do think you can negotiate your joining date. I have seen people do it just so that they can attend to day one tests and interviews. Not that risky, but again, it depends on what kind of company you're joining and what arrangement you have with your supervisor. It is possible. It is also highly likely, but in the odd case that it does not happen, then you are putting a lot of your eggs in the baskets of PPOs from your PS2 or your SI. However, I don't think it's that risky.
All right, thank you. The next question is for Shurjo. It says, "Hi, I'm currently pursuing mechanical engineering at BITS Pilani campus. While I enjoy my coursework, I've developed a strong passion for research in pure sciences, especially theoretical physics. However, I've noticed that my current curriculum doesn't intersect much with the topics that truly excite me. I'd love to hear your recommendations on how I can explore and transition towards research in theoretical physics."
Uh, well, I think that's pretty simple. So have to do some homework from your end. So whichever professor is there in the Department of Physics who is working in the domain of your interest. So even in theoretical physics, there might be few things that might appeal you, like quantum or perhaps string theory, something like that. You essentially go to Google Scholar and perhaps, yeah, actually Google Scholar is the best place. You go there and you check the research that the professor is doing currently, and you go through their papers, their current research. Perhaps the best way would be to interact with their PhD scholars. That way, you can get an idea of the projects that they are doing currently. After that, just send a mail to the professor that, "Hi, my name is XYZ. I went through your research work and I would like to discuss with you on the same." And then, after you schedule an appointment for a meeting, you have a conversation and perhaps take things further from there. So, BITS has that provision of uh, students doing projects in other departments as well. So while I did not do that myself, but I know quite a few people who are, say, in one of my friends is in chemical engineering. He did SOP in the CS department in AI. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
All right, thank you. The next one is for Shrijan. How do you make sure that you get LORs from your internships?
Uh, that's a very interesting question. I mean, the prerequisite would be to do good enough work so that the would be willing to give you an LOR. Um, I've gone about it is that at the beginning of my engagement with whoever I'm working with, I am clear about my long-term goals. So if, for example, I want to pursue a doctoral degree later on, I'm very clear about my goals in the long term, and I do mention it to them. And more often than not, you will see that the people are encouraging if you have a lot of clarity of thought. So that sets some context for them to be expecting an LOR later on. Then you would probably have to uh, sort of impress them with your work ethic, with your work output, and eventually just request them for an LOR. Nowadays, getting an LOR itself is not very tough. Getting the person to write an organic LOR is tougher because it's very common for people to just take your resume and pass it to an LLM and generate an LOR, which will create zero impact for you. So I think the more personal connection you build through your work, the more it will help to have that impact from their LOR onto your profile later on.
I also like to add on this is actually like a continuous conversation or in between of the work. Try to means ask questions to professor and tell him his ideas as Surgeon Bhaiya said. To tell about the long term goals to be very specific. So that they also give their connections and try to help you out. And writing an LOR are I know many professor here in BITS directly he asks student to write it for themselves and they will just sign it. It's a case here in BITS which I'm aware of, but uh, when you do enough work and you are actually in a good impression for a professor, he'll take an effort and write for you.
All right, thank you so much, guys. Another question is for Sarthak. Is it necessary to have worked in labs on campus before getting any type of thesis? Like, what is the chance of getting one with some minor experiences in labs or startups?
uh, Basically, if one wants to go in some of the labs or work with a professor, they just see that you have an enough experience in that particular work which I'm talking or the professor is interested is, so they look for that. It's not necessary that you should have worked in some labs, but if you have working with some of the lab, it will always be beneficial for you, because you will get some connections, or maybe LOR or something, think so, which can be more like a strong a strong thing to show.
Okay, thank you so much. And now this will be the last question for now. And this is for all of the speakers. How do you balance your thesis or research aspirations with SI prep and placement prep? How to divide your focus? And can someone who has mostly been placement focused also work in research?
Interesting question. In the ideal scenario, you are lucky enough for for things to fall in place without you having to worry a lot about management, because a lot of these things will not overlap in terms of their time period. So you will have time to think about other things. The time when you're preparing for an SI is different from the time when you're actively reaching out to people, is different from the time you're actively preparing for placements, if you choose to sit. So in all likelihood, given you're doing a decent job at your individual components, you will not need to worry about time management. But I think what I personally feel is it should not take a lot of effort for you to reach out to people for thesis, to write your statement of purpose, to writing those cold emails, because this should be in a field of your passion. If you are not doing it in a field of your passion, it's better to just not do research at all, because you will not enjoy those 5 or 6 months, whatever you spend. Now, given you will obviously have the pressure of sitting for placements, etc., I think the research engagement itself is very light in terms of the workload. And if you have already scored an SI before that, you would already have done enough prep to sail it through. So, in that sense, it's less problematic than you think it is. If it is turning out to be problematic, maybe you need to reprioritize your set of goals a little bit. But that's my personal take. Obviously, everyone will have their own things to say about this.
While doing a thesis is actually you get a lot of time, because abroad or the timings are very flexible, actually, because the professor don't get that you come sit in lab or do stuffs. Even if someone does not go to a lab also, it's still fine for him, if you are submitting in stuff as he is expecting. Think so it's enough, and you get to explore more also, because to tell more about me, I just roamed Singapore, or went to another country also, with in weekends, and means started to actually grind DSA also along with it, my thesis. So it will give you enough time. But if you're considering in a semester, so in 3-1 I was actually doing one research internship if along with my ongoing semester. So it was a very difficult for me, but eventually if you are interested it, as a citizen way said, it's actually doable. uh, Means now just when I look, it was actually a fun experience also, because you get to learn also, and you know that where you have applied earlier, the things which you are going to use, or means telling prof or any of your advisors that we can do these things I have done earlier. So it will give you confidence.
If I go for it, like example, if you really get a lot of time when you are doing your thesis, so you can actually prepare for placements. But there is a difficulty, like if you are going for off-campus thesis, then you can only apply for a few particular companies. Like if you're going for an off-campus thesis in dual semester, like both the semester, then only you can apply for a few companies which are like open for interactions virtually. So which is kind of limits your choices. Further, you can go for like to be precise, you can also talk to your supervisor where you are going for off-campus thesis. For example, I'm currently at match plant. So for match plant, it's itself is an office. It's not really a university. So to get the affiliation, I was made admitted to like University of Cambridge. So the director or the PI, so since they are kind of maybe a big shot, they always get consultancy requests from different companies and startups. So recently there was a scenario where my director, like she got a consultancy request and she sent the mail to all over the group and like asked us that if anybody would like to join. And it's like if the director actually recommends you, they won't even take your interview. They would be like, yeah, directly come because your PI knows you way better than the person who is going to take you an interview. So through your original group also you can go for placements and other kind of things. And yeah, well, and preparing, like, as Sarthak mentioned, like, you really get a lot of flexibility and time, so you can prepare for anything you want.
Yeah, so I think I would mostly agree with everyone who has spoken. Preparing for an SI, preparing for the placement season while doing a thesis, possible, yes, but recommended, no. Because I feel that we are still in a developing stage. So overburdening with so many responsibilities at the same time would just make our lives chaotic. That too, with when you have to juggle your CGPA, now suddenly you have to get something done in a project, then there is a deadline, you have an interview. So just too much to handle at one point. So I personally believe that it would be much better if there is a sense of clarity which gets developed maybe in the second or third year, following which you can have a razor sharp focus on whether you want to sit for the placements and your SI, or you want to do your thesis and then go for research. Yes, that factor is obviously there that you will have time to prepare for, say, your placement when you're doing a thesis. Uh, but again, you can devote that time to something better, perhaps uh, opening opening up to other people and possibly making other connections, applying to other universities. So there's a lot more that you can do with your time uh, rather than overburdening yourself with unwanted responsibilities, in my opinion. But yeah, that's me.
All right, thank you so much, guys. We have received many other questions, but unfortunately, we have run out of time for today's session. We will be having another talk on research internships tomorrow, where we'll address some of these questions. And also, I have got some questions regarding contacting our speakers for further guidance. For this, I recommend checking out the research database on the SAC website, and I'll send the link to the SAC website on the chat right now. I hope that you'll find the resources there helpful. That brings our off-campus talk to a close for today. We will share the recording of this meeting later. A huge, huge thank you to our speakers for your time and to all of the participants for joining us today. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. All the best.